Well, hello there friends, and welcome back to Thomas Frank Explains. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a complete personal website in Notion from scratch. This will be a multiple page website with an About Me page, a blog section, even a contact form that works and sends you emails if people want to get in touch with you. We're going to start from a completely blank page in Notion, and by the end of this tutorial, you're going to have a full-fledged website that you can use to apply for jobs, or to get clients for your freelance business, or to build an online personal brand. We're also going to use Notion's new Notion.Site tool to give this website a header with pages up in the header menu, as well as a custom domain. So this is going to be a complete one-stop shop tutorial for building yourself a fully functional website, complete with a blog inside of Notion. The way I'm going to run this video is first I'm going to give you a tour of the website that we're going to be building as our little example here. Then we're going to get into the actual build process. So without further ado, here is what we're going to build. This is my personal website recreated in Notion.Site. We have a homepage here with a nice little header section that kind of replicates the header section from my actual personal website over at thomasjfrank.com. Now, this version of my website was built in WordPress, and we've been building this site for many, many years. Many hundreds of hours have gone into developing this, and I was able to build this recreation in Notion in under an hour. And hopefully I'll be able to do that even though I'm narrating and giving the sort of tutorial version here. We've also got a nice little featured section here, some featured articles from our blog, and an actual embedded ConvertKit form that people can use to subscribe to my newsletter, which is pretty sweet. We have an About Me page here with a little Ideas I Live By section. We've got some headshots that I have licensed with a Creative Commons license, so people can use these in publications and interviews and things like that. And we also have a press section here. So basically, anytime that I've been written up in a magazine or an online publication or a show, I put it here. And I also have interviews that I've been on, so podcasts, things like that in this section down here. So this is basically just an example of how you can collect the press that has been written about you, if you have press that's been written about you, so you can show it off to the world and lend a bit more credibility and authority to the website that you're building. We also have a templates page, and this will be an example of, say, a case studies page. So if you're a writer or you're a video maker or video editor, you could build a multi-column page just like this to show off your video editing work or your photography skills or your bylines, things like that. And we also have a blog page. I think this is actually one of the most powerful features of Notion.Site. You can very easily and very quickly create a blog. And then, as you can see here, I actually have multiple sections for my blog. So I have a productivity tips section, I've got a Notion tutorial section, and I have a low code and no code automations section. All of these sections are actually pulling from a single blog database, and then I'm using linked views of my database with filters and sort criteria to show only the blog posts that I want people to see in each section. Also, going back to the homepage, we have another view of that database right here showing my featured articles. If we go over to the contact page, we also have another fancy feature. We have an embedded tally form, which people can use to contact me. And if they fill out this form, I'm going to get an email, which I can use to easily respond to people or send them to spam and block them if they're spammers. So this is a look at what we're going to build in this tutorial. And by the end of this tutorial, I'm hoping you understand a couple of different things. First, how to build a complex multi-page personal website that really shows off your work and who you are and puts you in the best light for whatever opportunities you're pursuing in life. Secondly, hopefully by going through this tutorial, you're going to learn a heck of a lot of Notion bits and bobs here, because we have embedded contact forms, we have multi-column layouts here, we have databases and linked database views. So if you're newer to Notion, this is actually a great project for learning the ins and outs of Notion and building a base of skills you can use to build all sorts of other things. On this channel, you'll also find lots of other tutorials like how to build expense trackers and to-do lists and note-taking systems. A lot of the skills you're going to learn in this tutorial, you can apply to builds like that as well. So without further ado, we are going to go to a brand new blank page in Notion, and we are going to start building ourselves a website in Notion. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command / to go ahead and get rid of that sidebar for just a second. And I'm going to just call this page Hello, I'm Thomas Frank. And I'm calling it this instead of something generic like home, because one limitation of Notion websites is we're always going to see this page title here. If we go back to the browser, we can see that blog is always going to be listed here, and Hi, I'm Thomas Frank is going to be listed here. We don't have the capability yet to hide the page title, so we're going to use it to our advantage and make it sort of like the tagline for our homepage. Going back to Notion, we're going to come down here, and the first thing I want to do is go ahead and set myself up for success by customizing my page. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit Customize Page right here. And I'm going to put all these top level discussions, backlinks, and page comments to the least intrusive settings that I can. So let's set this bad boy to off. Let's go ahead and set backlinks to off as well, and page comments to minimal. That's going to make sure that if I ever do link to this page, there's never going to be that one backlink or two backlink little label right here that you would normally get. Okay, so looking at our reference, the next thing we need to build is a 2-column section where we have our little tagline here with some buttons that go to our other pages, and we have a picture right here. But we can already see that we have a couple of buttons that are going to link to other pages in the website. So before we go ahead and build this section out, I think I want to create the other pages we're going to use, not necessarily build them out yet, but at least get them created. So I'm going to enter down a couple of times. And then here's a nice little trick I like to use. I like to use this little forward bracket character and then hit space to create a toggle. And I'm going to call this section Site Navigation. Within Site Navigation, I'm going to go ahead and create my pages. And because I already know that I'm creating multiple pages, I'm going to show you a cool trick. Instead of creating pages one by one, I'm going to create a bullet list item. I'm going to call this page About Me, this one Templates, this one Blog, and this one Contact. And now that I have these 4 bullet list items, these are actually blocks, just like nearly everything else in Notion, including pages, which means that if I select these 4 blocks, just like that, I can go to the 6-dot menu here, and I can turn them into pages. So that's a really quick way to create multiple pages without having to type /page over and over and over again. Now that I have these pages, I'll be able to link to them. So I'm going to come back and fix them up later. Now that I have them, I'll be able to build out the bones or skeleton of this homepage. And the first thing I think I'm going to do is enter down a few more times, give myself a little 3- here, and then I'm going to type /2c to create 2 columns. I'm going to take my site navigation toggle and I'm going to throw it over here. And I think I'm going to go ahead and make it gray as well. I kind of want to make this as unobtrusive as possible on the finished website. And if we look at our example site here, you can see that in the footer, that's exactly what we have. We have our pages linked down here. And the reason that I'm kind of trying to hide them in the footer is using the Notion.Sites features, we actually have them up in the header already. So I think it's sort of redundant to have them somewhere on the page that's really obvious. That's why I hide them down here. All right, going back over to Notion, I now have this left section in my 2 columns, and I think I'm going to use that to add a little copyright notice. So on the Mac, you can actually hit Option G to create a copyright symbol. On a Windows machine, there is a weird alt code, which I'll put on screen right now, or you can just copy it from Wikipedia or something. I often do that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do copyright Thomas Frank 2024, and I think we're good for our footer. We're going to go ahead and actually use this later on in the build as well on our other pages. But to continue with building out our section at the top here, I'm going to once again do a /2c to get 2 columns. And then I'm going to actually go to this little build assets page that I created for this tutorial. So rather than literally typing out all this stuff here and having to do tons of cuts or boring you, I'm just going to go ahead and copy a lot of this stuff here because, well, it's really not that important for you to see me typing it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this into this side over here. And you can see because I copied those blocks to my clipboard, they come in as heading 2s already. If I wanted to make them something else, I could obviously turn them into heading 3s or heading 1s, but I think heading 2 is going to be perfectly fine. Another thing that I did in preparation for this build, which I actually recommend that you do as well, is create yourself a folder on your computer of all the assets you want to use on your website. So that's mostly going to be the images you want to use on your website, but if you have anything else as well that you're going to want to upload, put in this folder as well. And looking at everything here, it looks like I just have images that I want to work with. So to make this a bit easier on myself, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this columns view. That will allow me to go into my headshots folder and actually preview these headshots. Another great tip if you're trying to build a personal brand or online presence for yourself, go get some headshots. There's probably a local photographer in your area who will do it pretty cheap, or if they want to build up their portfolio, they might even do it for free if you ask nicely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in this headshot right here as a right column on my homepage. Go ahead and delete this block here. And because I want this to be cropped and circular, I'm going to go ahead and use one of Notion's newer features, which is this crop image feature. And if I go up to this little menu in the top left corner, I actually have a bunch of presets I can choose from, including circle. So I'm going to choose that one right there, get myself in a circle just like that, hit save, and there you go. I have most of my little header section here. The only thing I'm missing is the buttons that are going to go to my templates page and my blog page. So I could obviously just link to these if I wanted to, but to make this look like a proper website, I think using buttons just looks a little bit better. Here we can see these look like proper homepage buttons, just like we have on my actual homepage. So to create those, we can type /button or /but if you want to, and we can create ourselves a button that just goes to another page. So when the button is clicked, we can add an action, and the action is open page, and then we can find the page that we want to go to. Now, I don't immediately see the pages that I want here, and because I already have a finished copy of this website in this workspace, I'm going to do a little trick. I'm going to temporarily go into About Me, and I'm going to do bracket T for tutorial. And I'm going to remove these later, but this is just going to make it a little bit easier for me to find these when I'm searching for pages in my workspace throughout this build. There we go. Now if I go back into my button settings, I should be able to easily search for my About Me page and find the one with T. There it is. And then because this is a website and I want it to function like a website, instead of opening it in Centerpeak, I want to go ahead and open it as a full page. Finally, we can give it a label and an icon. So I'm going to name this Get My Notion Templates. I'm going to find an icon here, and I think the icon we're going to use for Notion templates is these little squares right here. So there is our Get My Notion Templates button. I can also enter down from this H2 or heading 2 block, so I get a little bit of space here. And I'm going to create one more button that will go to our blog. So entering down from the Notion templates, I can stay within my little column setup here. One more time, /but. We're going to do read the blog. Find ourselves how about a pencil icon with some little lines here. And then we can do another add action being open page in full page, and we'll find that blog page we created. There it is. Okay, so there is our header section. And to make this photo a little bit bigger and to make it sort of vertically aligned with everything here, we can actually stretch these two columns out, even though we're on a normal width page. Now, this was something that I sort of levied as a criticism at Notion, or something that I want them to fix in the near future. We can't do this on single column rows here. If I wanted to make this horizontal rule a little bit wider, I couldn't do it without making the page entirely full width. And I just don't think that looks very good. But at the very least, if we have 2 columns or more, we can stretch things out. And one little hack I can teach you, if you want to use it, you can in a pinch make 3 columns, make the outside columns very, very thin and blank, and then use that just as a way to sort of, in a hacky way, make one column wider than it otherwise would be. I've used that in the past. It's not a trick that I typically like using, but it is something you can do. Okay, so the next section we're going to add to our website here is just a little H3 or heading 3, and we're going to call this Featured On. And then if we bring up my little prepped folder of images, we should be able to find this Logo Rail 2023 February. So this is basically just an image I created full of logos of websites that I've been featured on here. And boom, just like that, we have a logo rail on our website. The next thing I'm going to do is I think create another horizontal rule with 3 little dash characters, enter down a little bit. And this is a technique that just basically kind of spaces things out. If I were to have none of these blank blocks, things would look very compact and probably not very good. So I'm utilizing empty blocks here just to create some nice spacing that gives the website a little bit better flow. Down here, we're going to create a placeholder section. So I'm going to do H2, I think, for some featured blog posts. But we don't currently have a blog database, so I'm just going to give it a header. We'll do featured articles. And then later on in this block here, we're going to put a linked database view, a little gallery view of all the blog posts we want to feature on the home page. Finally, entering down a couple more times, we're going to bring in a little placeholder for a join my newsletter section. So I wrote out this copy myself. Later on, I'm going to show you how we can go get a ConvertKit form. ConvertKit is an email marketing service for writing newsletters. And we can actually embed it right here on the page to allow people to join our newsletter directly from our Notion website. Okay, so we have a couple more things to do on this homepage before we go and start building out some of the other pages. First, to make things easier on ourselves during this build process, I'm going to go ahead and favorite this page here, and I'll go ahead and hit Command / to show you what that does. By hitting the star up here, it's going to show up in my favorite section, which by default is going to be the top section of my sidebar. So this just gives me a really easy way to access this page as I'm building, along with all the pages inside it, which make up the other pages in my website. Finally, if we go back to to the sample build that I've already done, we've got this cool little wavy header here. So how can we create that? Well, it's actually quite simple. This is just an image I created. So I'm gonna go ahead and upload it as a header, and then we're gonna take a slight little side quest and I'm gonna show you how to create an image like this for free. So going over to Notion, I'm gonna go ahead and add a cover, and I'm gonna go ahead and change cover, upload my own image, and I'm gonna go ahead and find that little website assets folder that I already pre-prepped. And here is our cover test image.jpg. We'll go ahead and open this bad boy up, and just like that, we have a cool little wavy header. If I want, I can reposition it and make it exactly where I want it. And now it looks pretty much like it looked before in the browser. Now, one thing I have not added to this homepage is an icon. We're gonna add icons to all the internal pages, but on the homepage with this tagline here, with this header here, I think having an icon would just push everything a little bit too far down below the fold. So I'm not gonna use that on the homepage, but as you can see, we are gonna use the icons, including some custom icons on the rest of our pages. So don't you worry, we are gonna do that in a little bit. Okay. If you are curious about how to make this cool little wave image, you can actually do it for free. I did it in Photoshop using the wave generator filter they have, but there is another online photo editor or photo manipulation program called Photopea. There's actually a whole bunch of them, but this is the one that actually worked for me, which is free and actually has a wave generator built into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a new project right here. Let's go ahead and create ourselves a 1920 by 1080 dimensioned picture here. I'm gonna just go with a white background, hit create, not use a template there. And then all we need to do is find the shape tool right here, choose a fill color we want. So I'm gonna go with something pretty dark, but not totally black, and then create a shape just like that. And it doesn't need to come down all the way. It just needs to come down about halfway. And remember, we can reposition the image in the header. So exact dimensions here doesn't really matter too much. The next thing we need to do is actually rasterize this because you cannot apply filters to a shape layer in this program, nor can you do so in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to layer right here and I'm going to rasterize that bad boy. So now it's just a regular JPEG layer basically. And now we can go to filter, we can go to distort, and we can go to wave. And now we have all these cool little waves, and we can basically just edit this to our heart's content. So I think I'm gonna change the minimum length just a little bit, and I can change that minimum length so I get basic symmetry on either end here. It might be a little hard to get exact symmetry, but we can get pretty darn close. And then we might wanna change the amplitude as well. So I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And then with the move tool selected over here, we can go ahead and move this up, and then we can get the eraser tool, which I can just hit E to get, change our size to something big, and then go ahead and get rid of the waves that were on the bottom there. So that's how we can create a wave image really easily. We can then go to File and export as a PNG or a JPEG, and just like I did before, you could upload that as your header or cover. You could reposition all you want, and that's how you get that cool little wave background there. All right, so we are now on to our second page. And at this point, we're gonna go ahead and create our About Me page. And I think I can go ahead and get rid of this little bracket, T bracket as well, because I don't think I'll be linking directly to this page again within this build. So let's start this off by first going through our little customize song and dance, turn all these bad boys off, set them to minimal. That way we don't get any backlinks or page comments showing up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add an icon. And because this is an About Me page, I'm gonna go ahead and do a custom icon, which will be a little headshot that I have in my prepped images folder. So once again, go to our little website assets folder right there. I've got a nice little square image that I'm going to use, and I'll upload that as the icon just like that. Okay, so looking at our reference here in the browser, the About Me page basically is just a single column page for the most part that has a little bit of information about who I am and what I do. I have this cool little ideas I live by section here that I think is really cool to have on my personal website. It might not be something that's crucial if you're just trying to get hired, but I like sharing my life philosophies, and a lot of people have expressed that they like this section as well. So if you got some cool philosophies or ideas that you live by, feel free to put them on your website. We also have a headshots area here. Again, this is great if you're being written up on a blog or in a magazine, or you're being interviewed. If there's a feature that people want to make about you, providing them with headshots with a really easy way to access them is just a nice little hack. And then we're going to add a little press section. So of course, I leave it up to you to gather all these materials, write your own copy. There's lots of great videos on YouTube on how to word things and how to sort of express who you are and what you do on the internet. This is more of a technical tutorial, so I won't get too much into that. We are just going to go ahead and start building things here. And like I said earlier, I have a lot of this material pre-prepped, so I'm going to go ahead and just paste those blocks in for a little about me section here. Let's go ahead and enter down. I'm going to do a /2 and make this section called Ideas I Live By. And I think this might actually be a little bit small. So I'm going to do a little course correction and change this into a heading 1. And I'm going to do the same thing on my home page, changing these sections here into heading 1s as well. And this is just sort of aesthetics here. You can kind of go with exactly what you want. And if you're an SEO junkie and you want this specifically to be H2 tags in the HTML, you might want to leave those as heading 2s. I don't care so much. And I think this looks just a little bit better and just sort of flows a bit better with the overall design. So going back to About Me, let's go ahead and get these ideas that I live by in here. This is just a regular numbered list. So if you just hit 1 period space, you would get a numbered list just like this. And then we can go down here and make our headshots section. So I'm going to do a /1 for an H1. Do headshots just like that. And I have a little bit of copy that I'm going to bring in for the headshot section as well. One thing that I'll note is that I have explicitly released these under a Creative Commons license. I believe this is the one where they have to at least credit it. And that basically gives people permission to use it if they want to cover me and stuff without having to ask me permission. That's just a little hack that I've learned over the years. Okay, let's go ahead and create ourselves another 2-column layout. So /2C there. And then we're just going to go ahead and bring in some of those headshots. So this one we'll bring in as our first headshot. We've got another one right down here. And you'll notice that these are not square. And I think in many cases, they will have different aspect ratios. So once again, if we don't want this sort of mosaic style layout here, we can use that crop image tool. And I'm going to go ahead and do that pretty quickly with the magic of editing. And there we go. We have a nice little grid instead of a mosaic here. And one thing that I did want to point out is if you crop a photo in Notion and you don't like your crop, like right here, I think I'm slightly off center, you can go back to crop and it actually retains the entire image instead of making a destructive edit. So I can go in here and I can change this crop if I need to after the fact. There we go. And to finish this out, we can go ahead and create a /1 once again. Call this section press, and I'll go ahead and bring in the little toggles that I created for my press section. Now, one more time, I will remind you how to create a toggle. You can do /toggle just like that, or my favorite way to do it, you can do this little shift and period key to get that little bracket, space, and there's your toggle. Of course, you can always paste things in if you've pre-prepped them like I have. So now we have a cool little features area. This is basically articles that have been written about me or articles where I've been mentioned. There's a couple of them, I think, where like the Wall Street Journal interviewed me along with some other people. If you are written up in a publication, even if the article isn't about you, it can be a good idea to link to that. And I also have a little interview section as well. This is basically podcasts that I've been on for the most part. To finish this page off, let's go ahead and enter down, do our little triple dash one more time, and I have my cool little copyright block on my clipboard, which I can add in just like that. Okay, so there is our About Me page, pretty much done. We're going to now move on to our templates page. So this is an example of a page you could create to basically showcase your work. In this case, I'm showing off the Notion templates I've created, which help people to be more productive. I've built task managers. I've built like a second brain template. I have a book tracker template coming out. The business that I'm running these days and what I want people to know about are the tools that I'm building to help them be more productive and use Notion to its fullest extent. So I'm creating a page showing off that work. Now, if you're a freelance web designer or you're a photographer, you're a video editor, you would use the exact same concept when building a page like this. Show off your work and make sure that people can see it. I can't tell you how many people have oftentimes emailed me or tweeted at me saying, hey, I do X, Y, and Z. I edit videos, I do photography. Will you hire me? But then they don't have a portfolio. There's no way for me to see the work that they've done. This is a great way to showcase that work. And because we're building it in Notion, we can build it really, really quickly. If you have the work and you can show it off, there's not much of an excuse not to do it. So to build out our templates page, first, let's go ahead and hide this sidebar one more time, and let's give it an icon. This time, we're going to use one of Notion's own icons here. And I think for templates, we were going to use this grid square 2x2 icon. Let's add that there, and it's already looking so much better. Okay, So I've got some pre-prepped copy that I'm going to go ahead and put at the top here, just as a description of what this page is. There we go. And once again, we're going to enter down a couple of times to create some space. We are going to create a 2-column section, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start bringing in my pre-prepped template content here. So I'm going to go ahead and build one of these out just to show you how to do it. And then I'm going to bring in the others in a sort of copy and paste fashion. So I think we're going to go with /2 for this page here. I'm going to call this template Ultimate Brain. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring over the image that I already have on my clipboard for this template. Now, if I had prepped a little bit better, I would have had that image in my little headshots or blog images folder as well. Forgot to do it, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy it over from Notion. But again, if you have all this content, I would highly recommend collecting it, maybe even copying it and putting it in a website specific folder. That way it's easy to find. So Ultimate Brain, as the copy that I wrote states so eloquently, is the flagship template that I offer. It's a complete productivity system with tasks and notes, projects, goals. If you want to turn Notion into a total productivity system, you want to plan your day in it, you want to plan multiple quarters of the year out, you want to track projects and goals, and implement the para methodology that Tiago Forte teaches in building a second brain, you can get that over at thomasjfrank.com/brain. Now, one thing that I notice here is I pasted this in, but it's not really respecting the 2-column structure here. That is something that can commonly happen, but if it does happen, no worries. You can go ahead and grab this 6-dot menu right here, drag it up until the blue line is just under the next block, and it's going to go inside of that little template area. So another thing we can do is actually link to external websites inside of Notion. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the link for this page right here, copy it to my clipboard, and then if we just go ahead and get this template, we can make this text bold and make it look a little bit like a link. Then we can do a Command K to bring up the little link dialog, paste that in there, and there we go. Now, one limitation that I was a little bit disappointed to see is that when we're creating buttons like we did here, we actually can't link to external pages with the buttons quite yet. So I'm hoping Notion will add that as a feature in the future, and saying feature and future is always a weird thing for me, but I'm hoping they'll add that soon. Until then, we can just use bold text like this to create these little pseudo links. I'm going to also enter down just to make that a little bit better looking in terms of layout, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring in the other templates that I've created as a copy and paste operation here. So there is Ultimate Books. This is a template that is launching very soon. If you are on my newsletter, which you can get on over at thomasjfrank.com/fundamentals, you will know when this launches. And I've got a tutorial where I'll show you how to build it from scratch coming out very soon. And I have 2 other templates that I want to put on this page. However, there's a particular way that I want to do it. So if I just entered down from this get this template link right here and pasted Creator's Companion like that, then when people view this on mobile, they're going to see Creator's Companion above Ultimate Books. We're not going to have the Z pattern that we normally get on responsive websites. And I want to actually retain that Z pattern. I want this to be the first template, then this to be the second template. So instead of just entering down from this column, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to create a new block, and then I'm going to drag it until I can see that it is full width. I'm going to do my little triple dash to create a horizontal rule. This is just for sort of my own visual guidelines here. And then I'm going to create another set of 2 columns. So by doing that, I'm creating one row here that has 2 columns, and those will stack. And then I'm creating another row down here that has 2 columns as well, and then those are going to stack. So I'm going to get that Z pattern that I want. So I can go ahead and paste that in just like that. And finally, I'm going to paste in my expense tracker template like that. We'll finish this off by going and getting my little copyright symbol block. We're going to create another little 3 dash just like that. I think this isn't enough blank space here, so I'm going to go ahead and do this little trick one more time to get a nice little blank block. Enter down a couple of times for some consistency with our links, and then we can actually get rid of this block right here. Because we've created a row and another row, we're going to retain that Z pattern on mobile, even if we get rid of the horizontal rule that we created earlier. Now, one thing I noticed is that this image isn't going all the way to the edge of the column, so I can go ahead and basically just click that little handle until it does. There we go. And do the same over here. It's a little weird bug that I've noticed in Notion, but it's pretty easily fixed. And with that, our templates page is done, and we can now move on to creating our blog page, which is probably the most advanced page in this tutorial, and it's one of the reasons why I'm excited about building websites in Notion. I've been building websites in WordPress and a lot of other platforms over the years. I recently built the Flylighter website in Framer. That's our Notion web clipper extension that's launching very soon. And while all those platforms are really useful and I like them, creating blogs and other dynamic content that would be in a CMS or content management system is often quite cumbersome. It can take quite a long time. And in Notion, it's really, really easy to do. So to start this off, like before, we're going to go ahead and paste in our little pre-written description of what this page is. And then we are going to sort of branch off a little bit because now we're going to create a database for the first time. And this database is going to hold all of our blog posts. So by typing /database, we get a database pretty much instantly. I'm going to call this database blog posts. We can also, if we want, open the database as a full page, and that way we can give it an icon. So I'm going to go ahead and find this little pencil list icon. And I also want to give that pencil list icon to this page as well. And I'll go ahead and get rid of that little bracket T bracket too. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name property to title. Name property is always going to be in a database when you create one and you cannot delete it. But in terms of blog posts, we wouldn't want to delete it. That's going to be the title of our blog posts. And then we're going to go ahead and have a tags property, which is already in here by default. It's kind of handy. And I think I'll also create a date property and call it publish date. And I'm going to add one more property, which will have a files and media type, and I'm going to call this featured image. And the featured image is what we're going to use in all of these views on the blog page to show the actual featured image of the blog post. The reason we're going to use a property for that is if we click in here, you will see that we do have what looks to be the same featured image on the page, but this is actually an embedded YouTube video. And sometimes you might not even have a YouTube video or an image for a blog post. So by using a property like that, you can ensure that you have an image for these little gallery views like this. Okay, so we now have the structure for our blog post. I'm going to go ahead and add a few tags because what I want to do, and I'll show you this again as a reference, is break my blog into different sections on the blog page. I want people to be able to easily browse my productivity tips separately from my Notion tips, and those should likewise be separate from my no-code and low-code automations. I've got content for basically 3 audiences that have probably some overlap, but not a perfect overlap. So to do that, we can go ahead and create some tags, and we're going to be able to filter by these tags later on. I'm going to call this tag productivity. We'll make a Notion tag. We'll make a low-code tag, a no-code tag, and then I'm also going to create a 5th tag called featured, and we're going to use this tag for the home page. So for now, we won't have any of these tags on here, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all but one of these initial rows that we get here. And with this initial blank page, we're going to build out our first example blog post. Now I'm going to assume that you already know what you want to blog about if you want to have a blog. So like before, I'm just going to go ahead and paste some sample content on here. This will be our page content. And then let's go ahead and get ourselves a title as well. I forgot to add that to my clipboard. So I'm just going to copy it from the website just like that. We'll give it a tag of productivity. We can also give it a featured image, so we can actually upload, find our little Notion website assets and blog images folder. And I'm going to go ahead and find my calendar thumbnail, bring that in as the featured image, and then set a publish date as well. So just for quickness, I'm going to go with April 1st. Yeah, April Fools, don't manage your calendar. And then one thing that I want to do is make sure that all of my views of the blog actually open my links as a full page. Now this works great in Notion. And if you want people to have a Notion-like experience in the browser, you can leave your databases on side peek, where when you open pages in the database, they're going to open as a little side pane like this. That can be fine if you want it to sort of feel like an app, but I want this to feel like a website. So I'm going to go to my little 3-dot menu here. I'm going to go to my layout menu, and then I'm going to go to open pages in and change that to full page, just like that. Now, when I open the page, it opens as a full page. And of course I can do Command or Control back bracket to go back all I want. Now, to save us some time, I've created this prepped posts database here. This is a separate database full of some other blog posts, and I'm going to go ahead and just move these blog posts into this database. And if the databases have the exact same structure, that is going to work perfectly well. However, I already can see that there is an issue that will cause us a little bit of trouble if we don't fix it ahead of time. We have published date here, but then this date property is called published date. And if these don't match up, when I bring this into the other database, it's just going to create another property. So just wanted to show you that as a little bit of a tutorial on moving posts between databases in Notion. I'm going to go ahead and rename this to publish date, so that way the properties match. And now that I've done that, I should be able to go ahead and select all of these rows, drag them up into this database, and now they're in this blog. I can now go ahead and delete this one that I had prepped ahead of time. And to make this a bit more consistent, I'm gonna go into this blog post that we pre-prepped, and I'm gonna give it an icon. I'm gonna go over to Notion's little custom icon section. Note that I've changed this over to red, and I'm gonna go ahead and find an arrow. And there should be a little triangle. Nope, it's not an arrow. Maybe it is just a triangle, or maybe it's play. Ah, there we go. Playback button. Now it looks pretty consistent with everything else in our little blog posts database. Now earlier I showed you that we had multiple sections in our blog, and the way that we're going to show these different sections is by creating linked views of the database we just created. And each of these linked views is going to have a gallery style layout. So to basically prep ourselves for that, I'm going to go ahead and create ourselves a footer. So once again, a little double or triple HR. We're going to create our /heading2. I'll do Option G, Thomas Frank 2024 for our copyright notice. And then over here, I'm going to create a toggle. I'm going to call this blog database. And I'm going to bring this blog database right inside of our toggle. So this basically gets it out of the way. I can also go ahead and hide this blog title, and this sets us up for actually laying out the page the way we want. So entering down, I'm going to go ahead and create myself a heading 1 for productivity, another heading 1 for Notion tutorials, and a third heading 1 for no code and low code tutorials. Now up in our productivity section, we're going to go ahead and create a /gallery view, and we can choose our blog posts database as the source for that gallery view. We'll go ahead and pick new gallery view just like that. If you wanted to do another view, you could, but I think gallery is perfect for blog posts. And then we can actually customize our settings here. So I'm going to hide the database title. I'm going to set my card preview to our featured image property. That's why we created that. The card size is going to be small, so we get 3 instead of 2 per row. We'll go ahead and wrap our properties, and then we're going to open our pages in full page mode, just like before. We'll keep the page icon visible, and then under properties, I also want to show my tags. And if you wanted to, you could also show your publish date as well, just like that. I think I'll go ahead and hide the publish date here and show it on the actual page. Now, if you open up one of these blog posts, we can also go to our customize page option right here. And if we wanted to, we could say hide the featured image, just like that. And I think showing the publish date and showing the tag makes total sense. However, we can also, if we want to, go over here. I think I want to set the property visibility for tags and publish date to hide when empty. That way, if we have something without a tag or without a publish date, we're not going to see empty properties. And that's just going to feel a little bit more like a polished website than a Notion page with just these blank properties sitting around. Going back with Control or Command bracket, we now want to filter this view so we only show productivity articles and nothing else. So if we come to our filter criteria here, we can go with our tags and we can choose productivity just like that. And then because of the blog, we might also want to sort by our publish date in descending order. So we see the newest blog posts first within this section. Okay, now that we've built this out, we can save ourselves a ton of effort because we don't have to go and do that 3 more times for these 2 sections and the home page. Instead, we can click right there on the 6-dot menu, click away to basically select this entire linked database block, and then we can copy it to our clipboard and just paste it like that. And then all we need to do in these pasted versions of these gallery views is go into our filter settings and change them up. So here, instead of productivity, we're going to go with Notion, just like that. And here, instead of productivity, we're going to go with both no code and low code, just like that. Finally, we can go back to our home page, and underneath that featured articles section that we teed up earlier on, we can paste this in one more time, change our filters from productivity to featured, and now you're good to go. Now I've only got 2 featured articles here, and I might want to have some more featured articles, at least enough to fill out an entire row. So if we go to any of these articles, we can use the breadcrumbs at the top of the screen to navigate to the source database, and we might want to find one more article to make featured. I think this calendar article is a good candidate, so I'll go ahead and add the featured tag. And now when we go back to our home page, we have all 3 of these just like that. Now I think on the home page, instead of using date sorting, I'm going to go ahead and actually get rid of my sorting. That way I can drag and drop to do custom sorting and showcase the exact things I want people to see in the exact order I want them to see them. So I'll go ahead and hide this filter here, and looking at our homepage, the last thing we need to add is our little ConvertKit newsletter signup widget. So to add that, I'm going to assume you already have a ConvertKit account. If you're using another newsletter provider like say Beehive or Loops or anything else, they might have similarly embeddable forms, but I know that ConvertKit does, and I know ConvertKit has free plans. So if you're looking to get into the newsletter game, I think ConvertKit is a pretty good option. So within our ConvertKit account, we can go ahead and create a new form. If you are not already on this landing page and form signups area, you can go to Grow and Landing Pages and Forms, and then we can create a new form just like that. Now I'm going to go with a form instead of a landing page. That way I can easily embed it. And then I'm going to choose inline instead of any of these other options here. We have a whole bunch of templates that we can use, and you are free to choose from any of these. However, this Claire form is the one that seems to fit best into the designs we're already creating in Notion. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Claire. Now we have quite a few options here. One thing I am going to do is change the name of this form from Claire form to site tutorial form, just so I know which form this actually is. Now, if you wanted to, you can go ahead and customize a lot more here. You can go into settings and change your incentive email and all sorts of stuff. This isn't a ConvertKit tutorial, so I'm going to sort of gloss over most of that. I'm just going to hit save, and then I'm going to hit publish so I can get my share link right here. Now this is important. We cannot embed the JavaScript or the HTML code in Notion because Notion doesn't actually allow us to literally embed HTML. But what we can do is go to the share tab and get this link right here. And if we go back to Notion, we can paste it in and choose create embed. And that is actually going to embed this directly in the Notion page. It's sort of freaking out right now, but if I drag it down, it's going to look just like this. And if I want it to be in mobile mode, I think I can change it to that as well. So it's sort of up to you, but I don't want this little scroll bar here, and I don't have access to custom CSS, so I can't just turn it off. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit taller just so I get that scroll bar away. And now this looks pretty native, or at least as native as we can get with a Notion site. Now there's one other area in our site where we want to have this little newsletter setup box. So I'm going to go ahead and click right there. I'm going to click away and copy just like I did before. And opening up my sidebar, I'm going to go ahead and find my blog page as well, because if we look at the actual website we're building, on the blog page, beneath all of our little categories, we have a Join My Newsletter section. And in fact, it's using the exact same copy as well. So instead of just copying that one little embed block, I think I'm going to go ahead and drag and copy all of this good stuff, go over to my blog section and add it beneath our final category, just like that. Okay, so now that we have the blog created, we are going to move on to our contact page. First, let's get it set up just like before. Delete that little bracket stuff. Go ahead and change this back to a blue icon. And I think a little mail or like a paper airplane icon is going to be good for a contact page. And before we add our form, I'm going to go ahead and bring in a little bit of default copy. Now notice, in addition to the form, I'm also encouraging people to tweet at me. I actually find that Twitter is a better place to talk with people than email. I kind of hate email. So if you're the same, I would encourage you to link to Twitter or whatever social network that you find is best. But beneath there, we can actually use a really cool service called Tally Forms to basically embed a contact form where people can actually email us directly from the form. Tally is awesome because it is completely free. And if we go back to our little site here as an example, it looks pretty native. If you wanted to pay to remove the watermark, you could. I don't think that's really necessary at all. They've made it look really good and pretty much styled exactly the way Notion would do it. So by creating a Tally form, we'll be able to get that nice little contact form. And then this is sort of an example of what you're going to see on the back end. You can actually see a summary of the responses that have been sent to you, but you can also go over to the settings tab and you can set up email notifications, and this will literally send an email to you every time somebody submits the form. So to create ourselves a form, I'm going to go to home here, hit new form just like that. Let's call this site tutorial form, just so I know what it is. And you're going to notice this looks really, really similar to Notion because that's sort of what the point of it is. So if I do slash, I can do a short answer, long answer. I can do an email. I'm going to go with short answer first. And the title is going to be your name. I'm going to enter down from this little field and do an email field. Give that a title of your email. And maybe you don't need these blank blocks here. I think that looks pretty good in terms of spacing. And finally, from this field, I'm going to go ahead and enter down one more time. And we'll do a long answer, which we will call your message. All these will be required. If you wanted to unrequire something like the name, you could go to the menu and uncheck required like that. And then we can publish the form. Once we have published it, all we have to do is copy it and paste it as an embed in Notion. But before we do that, I'm going to go over to settings and I'm going to make sure that email notifications is on. By default, it isn't. So I'm going to go with self email notifications. And I think all of this basic stuff here is perfectly good. And it looks like I would have to actually upgrade to Tally Pro to customize everything. But this is going to be perfectly functional for me. So I will save these changes, go back to Notion and paste this form in as an embed. Sweet. To finish this page off, as before, we'll do our little footer. So it's going to Option G, Thomas Frank, 2024. Can make a rap song out of that, like Krispy Kreme. So we are now done with the website building portion of this tutorial. We've got our contact page, we have our home page, we have everything else, the blog page, the templates page. And at this point, we're gonna go ahead and actually turn this into a website using the Notion.Site's features. Now, at this point, you have a bit of a fork in the road, choose your own adventure of sorts. If you don't want to pay for a website, if you're, say, a broke college student, you're really on a budget and you want to use this completely for free, you can publish this as a page to the web and you can just not have a custom domain. That will work perfectly fine. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you a feature in a domain registrar where you could buy a domain, which is generally pretty cheap, and actually redirect it to your published Notion website. That is the free option, and it's going to at least allow you to share your domain and have it redirect to a Notion.Site domain. So you're not going to have your custom domain up in the bar when people are browsing, but it'll at least go to the page that you want people to go to. If you want to actually use Notion sites and you actually want to use the custom domain add-on, which is $8 a month annually or $10 a month monthly, and also requires that you be on the Notion Plus plan or higher, so it makes it about, I think, $18 a month minimum. You'll be able to have a lot more features. You're going to be able to have, for example, all of these pages up here. You're going to be able to turn off the built with Notion little watermark up here if you want to. And of course, you're going to be able to hook up a custom domain. So I'm going to show you how to do all of that. I'm going to show you how to hook up a custom domain, but in a little bit, when we're looking at the custom domain hookup process, I'm also going to show you that redirect option just in case you are a free user and you'd like to stay a free user. So options galore. First, we need to get this bad boy on the web. Right now, it is a private page. So to publish this to the web, we can go to share and then we can go to publish. And just like that, it's on the web. How easy was that? So if we want to, we can view this site. It's going to look pretty much exactly like the other site we built, minus our header menu up here, but everything else is the same. We've got our ConvertKit little subscribe widget here. We've got our buttons that go to our different pages. It's all good. But to take it to the next level and to get that nice little header menu, we're going to go to our site customization. We also have search engine indexing and link expiration. I'm going to cover that in just a little bit. But first, we'll go to site customization and we're going to go ahead and customize some stuff. So by default, we have a share preview that basically just looks like the home page that we've already built. If we want it to be a little bit fancier or we want just a custom image, we can easily upload an image just like that. So I'm going to go to my little website assets here. Let's go ahead and find maybe a headshot that's a bit wider. I think that one's going to be pretty good. And now we have a custom share preview, which is going to show up if you share the page on, say, Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or anything else. We can also specify specific themes here. So by default, we have a light mode. We can also go over to dark mode, which I don't think looks very good with this design, but we can do it. Or we can have the theme respect the user's system setting. Now, I think light is going to be perfect for this site, so I'm going to go with that. And then we can also, if we want to, set up a favicon. So by default, we're going to have the Notion logo, but I actually have a favicon prepped. So I'm going to go ahead and find that favicon. And this is just a 72 by 72 square image. I think the dimensions can be higher or lower. This is just what I had laying around. I'm going to go ahead and set that as my favicon. And now that's going to show up in the browser tab. You can see right here when people visit the site. If we wanted to, we could also get a Google Analytics measurement ID and paste that in here. That's one thing I'm not going to cover here because I think a lot of people probably won't care, and there's actually built-in analytics in Notion. But if you want to, all you need to do is get the measurement ID for your property, paste it here. And finally, our header is where we have the most control over what we're going to actually change this to look like as a website. Now, as a reminder, all this requires being on the Notion Plus plan. However, everything here does not require a custom domain except for turning off the Notion watermark. Okay, so breadcrumbs, I could turn those off, but it kind of doesn't give us a way back to the homepage, so I'm going to keep them on. Search, I think I will actually turn off here, and then duplicate as template, I'm going to turn off because this is meant to be a website, not a template for somebody to duplicate and use themselves. I can also go ahead and add my pages here. And one thing that I will note is the only pages you're going to see in this menu are pages that are underneath the page that we are currently publishing, child pages of that page. That means we don't have to worry about going back and adding a little bracket qualifier to our pages if we have duplicates elsewhere in the workspace. If we choose a page here, we know it's a page that is contained within this homepage. So let's go ahead and add About Me. Let's add templates, find contact, and then also find our blog. Now, I'm not going with blog posts because that is the source database, which is feeding all of our blog sections. I actually want to go with the blog page we created. Then if I want to reorder things, I can easily drag things around to do that. And if I wanted to, later on, I'll come in here and maybe turn off this Notion watermark. Publish these changes just like that. And if we go back to the web page in the browser, we can refresh. And now we have our header menu created. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is one of the more complicated things in this process. I did it during the testing phase of testing out Notion sites. I'm hoping that it's going to be a little bit easier now that they've actually launched. We're going to go ahead and hook up a custom domain. So that way we have something a little bit more professional looking than a Notion.Site subdomain here. Now, if a subdomain is perfectly fine for you, you're done. You're good to go. But I've got this domain sitting around called thomasthefrankengine.com, and I want that to point to my brand new Notion website. So to do that, we actually want to go back over to Notion. We can go to Site Settings here, and you'll note that I have this little drop-down menu here. But right now, I don't have any other domains other than Thomas-Experimental. So I'm going to go to Manage All Domains. That is going to take me to the Settings and Members area of my entire workspace and to this Sites page here. From here, I can add a brand new domain, and I'm going to go with Custom Domain. Now, because I'm in an experimental workspace that I use for testing beta features, they've given me a free custom domain for a few months. After that, I will have to pay for it. Because you probably aren't in a workspace like that, I think here is the point where you're going to see that $8 a month add-on. So if you want to do that, go ahead and hit continue, and then you can actually type in the domain that you want. Now, importantly here, you cannot type in what's called an apex domain. That basically means you can't type just the domain.com. So I couldn't do like thomasthefrankengine.com like that. I need to go with www. If I didn't have www in there, then I'm going to get include a subdomain as an error message here. So we're going to go with www. We're going to continue. Maybe in the future, they will actually have those features for Apex domains, but for now they don't. And now we have these instructions here. So basically we need to, number one, already own the domain at a domain registrar. And then we need to go into the settings for that domain, and we have to create a CNAME record and then a TXT record. Then we can verify the domain. And from that point, we'll be able to set our brand new homepage as the homepage for this custom domain. So to do that, I'm going to go over to the registrar that I personally use, which is hover.com. There are other registrars out there. I've also used Namecheap in the past. I've used GoDaddy. I think Namecheap and Hover are pretty cool. Hover is more simple in most cases, so that's the one I typically recommend people use. In Hover, you can see I have a lot of domains. I have a problem, but we are not here to talk about that problem. We are here to find thomasthefrankengine.com and point this bad boy to our Notion website. So Within Hover, there is going to be a DNS tab, and you're probably going to see this on most other registrars as well. This is where you want to go so you can create that CNAME record and the TXT record. Now, depending on your registrar, you might also have some already set up records right here. These generally aren't going to matter because the CNAME record is going to basically point a subdomain of your domain to a specific location. In this case, we're going to point the www.subdomain to our Notion website. Then later on, to make sure all of our bases are covered and to also show you the redirect trick if you want to do this on the free plan, we're going to create a redirect for the Apex domain, and we're going to point the Apex domain to the www.version. So it's basically a little way that we can get around the fact that Apex domains aren't currently supported. So to start this process off, we're going to go ahead and get our CNAME record created. So we can go ahead and click that bad boy there, external.notion.site, and create ourselves a record right here. We'll choose CNAME. The host name is going to be www, and the target name is going to be that external.notion.site that we copied from Notion. We'll add that record, and then we're going to go ahead and add ourselves the TXT record. So this has two values you want to copy. The text record name first. So creating ourselves another record, we're going to find TXT, and the host name is going to be that first value. And note that host name here doesn't quite match up to TXT record name, but they are synonymous with each other. We're also going to get that record value, copy that bad boy, put that in the content area, add that record, and that's basically everything we have to do in the DNS tab here. Now over in Notion, we can click verify, and I'm going to click verify before doing anything else because this can sometimes take a while. So I'm going to go ahead and let that do its work. Occasionally it'll even say like, hey, it's taking a while to verify. Oh, look, it's doing that. So please check again in 10 minutes to see if the domain is ready for publishing. While we wait for that, just like a cooking show, putting something in the oven, we're going to go back over to our Hover area, and we're going to go to Overview. And in Overview, you will see there's also this forward your domain anywhere you like. So this is a forwards section. So here we are going to add a forward for our Apex domain. So under this little drop-down menu, we're going to find thomasthefrankengine.com. This is our Apex domain. We don't want to choose either of these because they are not the Apex. And we're going to forward that to www.thomasthefrankengine.com. So this is basically how you ensure that no matter what people type, they're going to get to the www.version. There is one small caveat. I think if people manually type https:/ and then they don't put the www in, things might not work. But in, I would say 99 out of 100 cases, or probably 9,999 out of 10,000 cases, people are just going to be clicking a link from Twitter or Facebook or wherever you've given them a link to get to your website rather than typing it out. So this isn't a huge problem. And this is going to cover pretty much any edge case that you're going to run into. So we'll save that forward just like that. And then we'll go back to Notion and see if our verification is done. Ooh, and while I was drinking water, it looks like our domain has now gone to live status. So now our domain is verified. It is ready to use. And at this point, we can select a page to use as our home page for this domain. However, it's telling us publish a page with this domain before we can set a home page. So we need to go back to the site that we just created. And just to show you one more time, we'll go to the share menu, we'll go to publish, and in this drop-down menu, we can change from our Notion.Site subdomain to our brand new spanking custom domain, just like that. Now, if we go back to manage all sites, by default, this is going to become the home page, but for whatever reason, if it didn't, you would be able to click into here, or if you had several, you'd be able to choose which of them you wanted to be the actual home page. So for example, say I had published also like a Pokedex or a recommendation site under my custom domain here, you'd be able to choose which of these is the actual home page people are going to see when they just go to this domain with nothing after the trailing slash. Now, earlier in the video, I also mentioned that we can use this trick to essentially use Notion sites without having to pay for a custom domain if you already own a custom domain yourself. And we can do that by forwarding from your custom domain to your Notion.Site subdomain. So I'm going to show you how to do that now, just in case you're currently not in a financial position or you don't want to, for whatever reason, pay for the custom domain add-on in Notion. So over in Notion, I have this other page here, which is currently live on the web. This is the Notion Pokedex that we built in my Notion API tutorial. And if we grab the URL to that, we can see here it's a Notion.Site URL with all this stuff on the end. We can go back to Hover, and we can find one of the other domains that I own. And I'm going to go ahead and find another domain that I'm not currently using. I've got this llamazinc.com one that I think is a perfect pick. Here, if I go to forward this domain, I can choose, once again, my Apex domain, and then I can just paste my Notion.Site link in there, save that forward. And now when we go to it in our browser, we get to it just like that. Of course, we don't have the custom domain up in the browser right here once we have actually landed on the Notion page. That is the downside of this method. However, it does mean that you can at least give out a custom domain, put it on business cards, link to it on Twitter or any other place you want to put it, and people are going to get to your actual website. All right, we have one final touch to put on our website here. If we go back to our site customization, we're going to go to our header one more time. And now that we have our custom domain hooked up, we can turn off that Notion watermark. We can publish our changes. Oh, and I lied, one more finishing touch. If we also want to, we can come to share, and we can also go to our search engine indexing features. Again, if you're on a free plan, you're not going to be able to change these too much, but if you're on the plus plan or higher, you can make this discoverable on the web, and then you can actually customize this. So I could type something in here, and I could also change my link title as well. For example, I could get rid of the little Notion and pipe symbol, save those changes, and now when people Google my name, they are likely to find this website. This is now my home base on the internet. And it's also the place that I'll be linking to from my Twitter profile, from my LinkedIn, from my Facebook, anywhere where I'm connecting with the people who I want to visit this website and take some sort of action. Contact me for a job, hire me for whatever services I'm offering. This is now my home base, and I want people to come and visit it. And now with all that done and with our domain propagated, we can now go over to www.thomasthefrankengine.com. And there is our finished website, complete with our header bar. We can easily go to all of our different pages here. And because we set up that redirect as well, if we accidentally go to http://thomasthefrankengine.com without the www, we're still going to get redirected to the www version. So we are still able to get to the website. And at this point, if you've been following along, you now know how to build your own full-fledged website in Notion, complete with a blog and multiple pages and with some fancy features, that contact form, that email sign-up link. So hopefully you can take what you've learned here and go and build your own website. And one of the beautiful things about using Notion for this is that Notion can be used for a lot more. You can use the same skills you use to build this website to build lots of other useful systems. For example, I use Notion for my productivity system. I use it entirely for my task management, for note-taking, even taking notes with my voice using a cool automation that I built. I use it for planning out my goals, tracking projects, and everything in between. And all of that is wrapped up in a template that I built called Ultimate Brain, which you can get over at thomasjfrank.com/brain. If you are tired of juggling productivity tools, if you want a one-stop shop second brain, a place where you can organize your life, you can take notes, you can easily retrieve the ideas and the resources you've captured, and you can make sure that nothing ever slips through the cracks, Ultimate Brain is the system for you. And once again, you can get it over at thomasjfrank.com/brain. And when you get Ultimate Brain, you also get access to our support community. So if you have questions about how to get it set up, how to actually use it in your everyday life, or how to customize it to your needs, you'll be able to ask our Notion certified support staff, and they'll be able to either link you to our documentation or answer your questions directly. Once again, thomasjfrank.com/brain to get your own copy of Ultimate Brain and to support the work that I'm doing. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. If you would like to take Notion even further, I've got a tutorial right here on how you can take notes with your voice, get them automatically transcribed and summarized with AI. It's a super cool tutorial. And over here, you can build a habit tracker with Notion. So if you're trying to be more consistent with your workouts or with reading, anything like that, check out that tutorial as well.